Everyone in this region is, in a way, being held hostage. Time now for the exchange and a look at where we go from here. Joining us now is Jonathan Conricus. He's a former spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces and now a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us. So some might look at this assassination and say, look, by taking out Haniyeh, if indeed Israel is responsible, and I have to be very careful with what I say here, but if indeed Israel is responsible, by taking out Haniyeh, Israel wins in one way, but loses in 100 other ways. Obviously, the way in which Israel stands to gain from assassinating Haniyeh is very obvious. But you also have to think about the various risks as well. There's ceasefire negotiations, there's the risk of an all-out war. And Jonathan, I know that you care deeply about the fate of the hostages as well. And you have to think about how much what happened here will be a setback for them. Just explain to us why now was the right time for this.
Yes, well, Shalom, thank you for having me. It's, I think it's easy. It's intellectually easy to look at it that way, but I would want to offer a different perspective. I know that it's not the conventional one, and I know that many people will disagree with what I say, but Israel in the bigger picture, I think, has Hamas on the back foot and has made significant gains military against Hamas. Our biggest lack of achievement so far is that there are still 115 Israeli hostages held by Hamas, and it is Hamas that is refusing to agree to a ceasefire, and it is the same Ismail Haniyeh who now is being represented in international media as some kind of modern-day Muslim Mahatma Gandhi, who is a deal maker and someone who is, no, this is a terrorist who was one of the architects and the enablers of the October 7 massacre. That is his legacy. He is not someone who was busy doing positive things. He is one of the reasons why there still isn't a hostage deal, because he and Yahya Sinwar have been refusing to hand over the hostages and end the fighting and to surrender and stop the fighting. And all the war could have ended if Hamas hadn't, of course, attacked Israel on October the 7th, and if they would have decided to say enough is enough and let's save the suffering of the region and let's return Israeli hostages. But they decided not to. And to close, I'll just say that, this assassination, which I believe was done by Israel, but I cannot say so officially, I think may also drive home the message to Yahya Sinwar and what's left of Hamas leadership that this train is only going one way. It either goes towards the fate of Ismail Haniyeh and Mohammed Dif, who are no longer going to be terrorizing anybody on this earth, or you do a deal. And that is what the options that Hamas have currently.
Well, it does seem now it's up to Mohammed Sinwar and Yahya Sinwar. Like his brother appear to be the only two leaders right now in terms of decision makers at this point. We'll see who and when Hamas decides to replace Haniyeh's death with. It's notable, Jonathan, that he was assassinated in Iran and not Qatar, where it's clear Israel, if Israel we're assuming is behind this assassination, would have had the opportunity to do the same. Also notable is the message, the tweet posted on X from the Qatari Prime Minister saying political assassinations and continued targeting of civilians in Gaza while talks continue leads us to ask, how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates a negotiator on the other side? Peace needs serious partners and a global stance against the disregard for human life. Given that and given where things are right now, I view that as somewhat of a muted response from the Qatari Prime Minister. He didn't say talks are over. In fact, I think that he had more contentious posts and response following some condemnation from Israeli officials earlier in this war against Qatar than what we saw take place with the assassination of Haniyeh. Does that suggest to you that perhaps there is still hope for talks?
Yeah, there is hope, and there will be hope until the last hostage is returned. Israel will continue relentlessly to operate on the ground and in diplomatic circles to get them back. And allow me to curb my enthusiasm about the statement of the Qatari official, because so far the Qataris have failed to deliver on what they are supposed to deliver. They're supposed to deliver Hamas, and they're supposed to be conduits to a deal. And so far, they have not only not allowed access to Israeli hostages by the Red Cross and to deliver medicines, which they specifically said that they would take care of, and they would provide medicine, crucial medicine to Israeli hostages. Hasn't happened. And so far, we've seen Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, playing hardball against Israeli demands, American demands, and what Qatar themselves have been telling Hamas, listen, this is the deal, let's go ahead. And so far, Qatar is not delivering, and I think it's an underwhelming performance. I'm happy that Qatar is not taking a more hostile stance when it comes to the assassination of Yahya Sinwar, but let's be clear. Had it not been for Qatar enabling Hamas safe refuge in Doha, offices and international standing and the facilities, Hamas would be in a totally different position, and they wouldn't have the clout or the ability to do the October 7 attack and to threaten Jews and kill Jews. So I wouldn't, treat the Qataris with so much respect. They're in an interesting situation, but had it not been for them, their incitement through Al Jazeera and their support of Hamas leadership in Doha, the Middle East would be a much better place, and Hamas wouldn't be as potent of an enemy that it was before October the 7th.
That aside, though, Jonathan, and we do have to leave it there, that aside, a lot of family members of hostages are really, really worried about what this assassination means for them. Understand it. I mean, it's just so painful. Biana spent time in Tel Aviv talking to a lot of these families. It's so painful to think about what they're going through. It's essentially emotional torture, what they're going through. And the glimmer of hope that they had has now faded. How long for, we don't know, but it certainly has faded.
I'm not sure that it has.
Jonathan, we do have to. I would love to talk to you again about this, but go ahead quickly. We have to leave it there. I'm so sorry, we are out of time.
We're doing a rally.
We'll have you on the show again, I promise, because we are out of time. Thank you so much, Jonathan Conricus, former IDF spokesperson.
Thank you, Jonathan. We'll have you back.